I want to tug at your head and a little bit at your heart. And I think, at least we at Elanco have found something that we and our employees, my colleagues, have found that is working very well as we try to address both the critics and our compatriots in agriculture. And I want you to start by recognizing the title here, Making Safe, Affordable, and Abundant Food a Global Reality. Now, we've heard a lot about the obstacles that are in front of us, and there are many. Absolutely. And I'll actually tick off a few of those. But I do not for a moment think that this is insurmountable. In fact, I would dare say that this is one of the best times we have to make a change in global agriculture and the acceptance of it. I'll quickly say, in case I forget later, that paper is in your packet. And the little jump drive that you got, some of you have a blue Elanco, some of you have a red Elanco. The red is for our companion animal business. That has loaded on it this full paper and the presentation, or at least a close one, that I'll be presenting. And we want you to use it if you want. If you don't, that's fine, but we want to go forth and multiply. If you hear nothing else, if you take no other notes today, I want you to write these down. 4 words, plus 2 words, plus 5 sets of numbers. Safe, affordable, abundant food. We have found that whether it's friend or foe in agriculture or in the consumer world, nobody disagrees with those 4 words. Everybody wants safe, affordable, abundant food. Worldwide. Then I want you to remember technology and choice. And then underneath technology, 50, 100, 70. And then the newest piece, many of you have perhaps heard or read the first white paper that my boss produced. The newest data is the 95-4. Now I want to give credit where credit's due. My boss, Jeff Simmons, is the president of Elanco, a visionary like I've not seen before. He and the company are what attracted me back to my roots of Elanco. And this is the coolest thing I've been involved with in a long time. And it's the reason I'm here, and we'll continue to do that. Okay, let's talk about 50, 170. You've seen this data in a certain number of presentations or verbally by some of our colleagues. But this is United Nations Food and Ag Organization data. And you've seen it replicated or shared. Economists agree with it for the most part. In the year 2050, used to be we said 50 years from now, it's now 40. 40 years from now, in the year 2050, world population will require a doubling of food, 100% more food. And the way we're going to get there is about 70% due to technology. Now we in agriculture in the U.S. recognize that. We've seen the benefits of huge adoptions of technology. So mechanization, hybrid seed, chemicals, biotechnology recently, genetics, all the things that you know so well, we have seen that adopted. The rest of the world hasn't. And in many cases, not all countries, but in many cases they are looking at breakthrough. China, India, many others. But 70%'s got to come from technology. The data will show that there is not nearly enough water if we go with the more standard low-tech route. There most certainly is not the farmland and acreage available to do that. So that's what we mean by 50, 100, and 70. So the time is now. So why am I bullish? I talked about it. Look at that. Record oil prices, very, very high. This is putting pressure, by the way, on food prices. High oil prices, commodity price spikes. That certainly benefits many in agriculture, but it can be a burden to many others, particularly those in animal agriculture. There's food security fears, there's trade restrictions, and there's a global recession. All this is putting pressure upward on food prices around the world at a time when we've got more and more people going hungry. So, this is what I want to introduce to you in addition to those words. We want to introduce this idea of 3 rights. The first is food as a basic human right. Now, I'm going to stop right now and acknowledge that there are a lot of naysayers, and they're mostly in the developed world, that say food, hunger, not an issue, not a problem, it's more the distribution thereof. That's poppycock. Hunger is growing. In Indianapolis alone, my home community, 80% of the kids in Indianapolis Public School are on free or reduced lunch program. And if you go to your city, I'll bet it's very similar. I live in a bubble. I'll bet many of you live in a bubble. And until we go see and experience and live in the world that these kids or their parents or both live in, we're going to always live in a bubble. Okay? So food is a basic human right. The second one is choice. I'll talk about that a little bit more. We in Elanco are not going to try to denigrate those who have a different choice in their food. Organic is fine with us. Now we're in the food animal business, so we might look carefully at vegetarianism or veganism, but you know what? It's a choice. That's fine. We have to respect choice. Choice wins. Now you have to believe in the market economy. And you have to believe that there will be sustained safety of food and quantity of food. But we're a believer in choice. And sustainability, you'll see that it doesn't say it's an environmental right. You'll see I'm saying it is environmentally right. It's the right thing to do. More on those. Let's talk about food. 1 in 6 kids around the world suffers from malnutrition or worse. 1 in 6. One of the things that we're doing as a company is engaging ourselves in hunger. I thought that I was active in that. I thought I appreciated it, but not until I started going and serving breakfast once every 2 weeks with some folks from the church to people who just know it's there and they come on in. It has changed my life. It has helped me understand that there is a world that I did not know. And I'm trying to place myself in a developing world where it's even much more pronounced. And I think it's only through that, setting foot in that environment, that we all can fully appreciate why we have to double food production. It drives me nuts when various policies, some by our own government, I would say mostly, and others, try to do protectionism that raises that cost of food. So food's a basic human right. The wave of global hunger is growing. Hunger is the number one health problem in the developing world. The lack of food kills more than war, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. Here's another data point. You know how we get caught up in an airline crash, whether it's the France jet that came out of Brazil or any of the others. Are you aware that the loss in children per day from hunger and malnutrition is equivalent to about 60 jumbo jets falling out of the sky every day? It's just a metaphor on the example that we're facing. There's a hidden hunger in industrial nations. In the inner parts of London, 2 in 5 kids suffer from malnutrition. In France, 1 in 5. In Japan, 1 in 7. In the U.S., 1 in 5. And this is a world that I'm getting more and more exposed to, and I challenge you to as well. And the reason I want you to do it is so that when you have somebody that says food is not a problem, it's just the economics or the distribution, you can say, no, it's very real, and it's in our backyard, and it's in the developing country. And that's why technology and modern food production is so critical. Let's talk about technology. Well, we define, and the government and the United Nations defines technology as practices, products, and genetics. So I think that's fairly encompassing with many in this room. It advances efficiency, which makes things affordable, and addresses hunger. Yeah, the domino effect is very deliberate. It's a metaphor. One begets or affects the other. Let's talk about China. The Chinese premier in 2007 said, "I have a dream to provide every Chinese, especially children, sufficient milk production." So let's look at where they are. Right now, that left bar is where they are, at 100 grams daily intake per day. They want to get to 300. The right bar chart is where we are in the United States at 706. They just want to get halfway to where we are today. You know what it's going to take for them to get to that 300? It's going to take the equivalent of 4 U.S. dairy industries. That's how many people are in China. It's going to take 4. Now, do you think they're going to get there with basic old technologies? No, they have got to adopt technology, and I think they're getting there. Let's talk about choice, which is a consumer right. Okay? Well, the first question is, do consumers even want technology? There's a myth out there, there's a saying that they don't want that. And we're seeing some shades of that. The movement to organic is a reflection of low tech, as some would call it. There are some that would say technology is bad. Irradiation, hormones, crates, all the things that we've talked about the last day and a half. All that comes together in some of these questions about what do consumers want. So what did we do? We took and compiled a lot of studies, and we wanted to see what really, no kidding, do consumers think. We've labeled this analysis the International Consumer Attitude Study. The key criteria we looked for were unaided questions. We did not want any leading the witness. We wanted the consumer to tell us, or in that case, whoever was doing the study, this is top of mind, unaided concern. And we followed the spending data, the bar chart at the checkout counter, because that is ultimately where you know how they voted. It's with their pocketbook. So what did we find? Well, the first thing is there were 28 studies, 26 countries, over 97,000 consumers over a period of 2001 to 2010. This was not original data that Elanco did. We went to the Food Marketing Institute, which is your retailers, the grocery manufacturers of America, Nielsen. We canvassed every study that we could find. Okay? And it actually started, whoops, let me go back one. I don't have it up there. It actually started with about 80-some studies, but many of them did not have those open-ended questions. So that's how we got up with 28, 26, 97, and there you have the time. Here's what we find. 95% of the people, which we just generally called the food buyer, fell into that category. And their criteria were taste, cost, and nutrition. And it's probably what most of us would want or consider ourselves to be. Technology's fine. They want good taste. They want cost. And they want the nutrition aspects. So 95% fell in that category. There were 4% that fell into what we call the lifestyle category. And by the way, that probably includes many of us in some cases. This is where you'd find luxury or gourmet type foods. It could be and probably does include organic or the locavores. It may be a local garden. And let me quickly say there's nothing wrong with that segment. I'm a part of that segment. I like my Starbucks coffee. Okay? You're a part of that. I'll bet some of you are, will buy organic. That's just fine. We cannot make organic and folks like that the enemy. That is not where we should go. So some of us are in that same category. So you add that together and you get the 99, which was one of the figures I showed you up front. So what about, or 95.4. So what's the remaining? Well, these are the folks that when you ask, may have picketed or protested or called an 800 number line or in some way objected to modern food production. It could be packaging, it could be some of the things that we've talked about the last 2 days. And that's the fringe. Why do I raise this? We're raising this data with retailers and with food companies. Because it's not Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth or some of those groups that are finding their way to be obstacles to us introducing new technologies. It's retailers and food companies. Because they'll get some calls on their 800 line or they'll get letters. They have got to protect those billion-dollar brands. I understand why Kraft wants to defend its cheese. I understand why Kroger or Meijer or Tesco or Safeway or Marks and Spencer. I understand why they want to protect their brand. These are bazillion-dollar, multi-euro, billion-dollar brands. But we've got to help them understand that if, based on a whim, they are deselecting technology or rejecting outright technology, there's a cost to that. And the cost is that we're not going to double food production. Now, we don't go so far as to say there's blood on their hands, but we do cite people like Norman Borlaug and others like him, the World Food Prize recipients, who point out that we've got to raise more food. And ideally, we've got to raise more of it in those developing countries. So, I want you to remember the 95, the 4, and the 1. So let's talk about the food buyer. Over 26,000 households were surveyed in October of 2010. This was our confirmatory study. We looked at the data and said, okay, we better darn well validate that this is right. So we hired the Nielsen company to do the very kind of study that we had others looking at. And there you see, the response was that 44% were mostly interested in taste, 31 or 2 were mostly interested in cost, and 23% nutrition. And guess what? 2% were other. Validated exactly what we had found in the other 26 or 27 studies. And that was a study done last year. 98% based on taste, cost, nutrition. So let's look at organic. Global sales of food produced without technology, which we'll look at and call organic. Look at the percentages. Now, organic gets a lot of attention, and it is very rapidly growing. But in total, in the U.S., 3%, global is 1.5%, and Europe it's 2%. I'm not going to go fight those folks. That's not where our problem is. They're an important niche, but they're very small. There it is projected. 4%, so another 1% growth in the U.S., a very modest 0.2% growth global, and 0.5% growth in Europe. Okay, so Brazil. Let's talk about Brazil as an example of adopting technology. Formerly a food importer, now one of the largest exporters. And in large part, I think it's done because of the adoption of technology and clearly bringing more land into production. Look at the total crop production, 365%, 10x beef exports over that period of time. Now the world's largest exporter of 3 major products. Their key ingredients are the climate, their leadership, embracing technology, and their pro-ag policies. A little bit like the U.S. or North America might have been 20, 30 years ago. Which is why what Animal Ag Alliance is doing, and why what you are doing in your own companies or your own institutions is very important, because we've got to defend and not get rolled on some of these policies and technologies. Even in the EU, I've met with Paulo de Castro. He's going to come to the U.S. here in a month or so. Read what he says. Farmers in the EU must be allowed to choose the tools they need to thrive, and our citizens must be free to select from the widest variety of food choices. He's chairman of the European Parliament, so he's kind of oversight. He's a member of Congress. He's oversight for DG Sanko, which looks after ag. So let's finally round up with the third right. Sustainability is environmentally right. I don't know if you know Jason Clay. World Wildlife Fund for years, when I was in the ag chem biotech world, was the arch nemesis of the industry. New technology? No, I think not. Wow, has there been a change. We're actively involved in their sustainable beef initiative. And I think they've rediscovered their roots to their credit. And that is that the only way we're going to be able to keep wildlife, read their world wildlife, the only way they're going to be able to keep more wildlife retained for wildlife is to take existing land and available quantities of water and produce more. Terrific metamorphosis. Let's look at some data points just to show you how far we've come here. Compared to 1944, producing 1 gallon of milk requires 65% less water. Now there's a data point you can use. If people object to farrowing crates or whatever they might object to in the dairy industry, talk about that. 65% less water because of genetics and improved efficiency practices. 90% less land. Compared to 1944, for every gallon of milk today, cows generate 76% less manure. Now a lot of that's because of higher productivity. Less cows, more productivity. That's a good thing. 63% smaller carbon footprint. Let's talk about beef. Many of you folks work with the beef industry. Each pound of beef produced in the U.S. today requires 14% less water. That's from 1977. Okay? 34% less land. And compared to 77, generates 20% less manure. Those are data points that start to resonate with people. Now, they may not be the be-all, end-all, but you know what? It may just be what it takes to neutralize somebody or turn somebody or help them understand just how good our agriculture has been. 18% smaller footprint. So technology enables three rights. Technology enables food as a basic human right. It enables choice as a consumer right, and sustainability, which is environmentally right. So here's some conclusions. Grain stocks are low. Food prices are high. Population's climbing fast. Yep, pretty scary, pretty threatening in some areas. But they are also the pathway forward to what we believe is a window of opportunity. But we've got to move boldly. We've got to move urgently. We've got to take the messaging that you've learned from so many speakers, and maybe we've provided a few here, and we've got to embolden ourselves and go out and share this with somebody other than just our own audience. I love what Tim said. He speaks to the Rotary clubs. He speaks to Kiwanians. He speaks to kids. Kids are coming out to their place. That's where we've got to go. We believe in Elanco there's 7 reasons to be hopeful. Let's talk about them. 5170 is playing out. You will for sure, because I've gotten the objections to more food is not the answer. Baloney. Absolutely it is. It absolutely is. 99% of consumers want taste, affordability, nutrition, and choice. On the back of the white paper are all the studies we looked up. You can go find them as well. We only had to pay for one. All the rest of them we found on the internet. Okay? Or provided to us. We're working hard on influencing 500 people in the food chain. Now, we're not trying to go replicate some initiatives that are already out there. U.S. Farm and Ranch Alliance, Global Harvest Initiative, Animal Ag Alliance. We're not trying to replicate what you all do so well. These are just the people that we know. These are our customers. Many of you are in the room that are on that 500 list. But we are really focused on getting out to that food processor, branded food companies, and retailers. Because we're finding that that's where the activists are going, and that's where we're getting the hurdles to adoption of technologies. In all 5 major decision-making areas, the data aligns. Science, economics, social, environment, and consumer. We're on the right side of all those. A shift in positive retailer decisions. We have seen some terrific decisions in retailer acceptance of technology. We just started reaching out and building trust. Some of that is with BST and dairy products. Some of that is with other products that we and our competitors use. Some of it's in technologies that don't even come from our industry. We've got to engage with these people so they understand the downside of deselecting technology. We're not going to win all those, but I think we're seeing great progress. And finally, regulatory consistency, record innovation, and alignment on efficiencies. We've got to keep a robust and healthy FDA, EPA, and USDA. Bet you never thought you'd heard me say that. The reason Europe is in the sorry state that it's in is a result of mad cow disease, when the public said, I don't trust my government anymore, I'm going to trust the retailer and the activists. We've got to keep a robust regulatory system, notwithstanding some of the difficulties that are there. A time for action on each of these. Technology and choice. We're communicating. I hope that's an example of what I'm doing here today. We're engaging in social media. I'll share with you our blog site, which is growing every week in the number of people it's working. And white papers and editorials. We are actively trying to do our part in the business of technology and choice. We are very actively engaging those 500 key influencers. And folks, I'm telling you what, it works. You've got to generate trust, but it works. Optimizing regulators. We're engaged there. We have to. We're a heavily regulated industry. But we're obviously very, very honest, and we're always looking to promote those messages. Trade standards. One voice for all. We're working with all of you. You all have a special niche we're members of, and proud that one of our employees is upcoming chair of Animal Ag Alliance. We support those kinds of things because it helps that singular voice. Back to making it personal. I had a difficult time telling somebody that they were wrong when they said, we don't necessarily need more food. We just got to get the policies right to get it distributed right. No, we got to have more. We got to have technology in those countries. And it wasn't until I engaged in my own passion, my own projects with hunger, that I could really look at them and say, you know what, honestly, you're wrong. I could give all the statistics, I could give my personal view, I could do all that, but until I really felt it internal, until it became a passion, I had difficulty refuting some of that. So I encourage you to get out and engage in hunger. In our case, we have a stated goal, and we'll meet it by 2025. As a company, mostly with Heifer International, we are going to bring 100,000 families out of hunger. We just started our third heifer project in China. The other two are Zambia, and the first one is in Indonesia. And if you don't know heifer, go to their website. It's a sustainable group. They are really bringing people out of hunger and keeping them out of hunger. They're teaching them to fish, as it were, not giving them the fish. We're also in our own community. We're on a quest, and I know there's some of my friends from Indiana here. We are on a quest in child hunger in Indianapolis. We've dedicated $250,000 to do it. We're taking advantage of food stamp program and WIC programs and all those, and we're going to make a difference. Our first project this summer is simply to publicize those free lunch, free breakfast programs that you all know about in schools. Kids go home for the summer, they're not in school, they don't get it. All the money's there for the food. We've got 250 sites around Indianapolis to deliver the food. They just didn't have publicity. Didn't know where to go. We're going to make a serious dent in child hunger, with a lot of partners, I might add. So, a time for action. We hope, we challenge you, I challenge you to personalize the issue so you really can, in your heart and your mind, say, here's what I believe, I have seen hunger, I know what technology can do, here's how I can bring that in. So personalize the issue. Engage the food chain. If you're visiting at the meat counter, if you're visiting with the store manager, they need to hear more from people like us. I had a really good discussion with my local Kroger and Marsh store managers about technology. It was amazing. And support the 99%. Support the 99%. Help people understand that people do want, or at least the majority, do want food, efficiently produced or cost-worthy and nutritious food. If you want to learn more, go to our blog site. Every week we post something new. Every other week it's a new guest blogger. We've had World Food Prize recipients. We've had Chairman of Bread for the World. Every once in a while somebody from the company does it. It's a quick read, and it's amazing what's coming through there. You have the white paper, but it's on that blog site, and there's a video there as well. So remember the 3 rights. Food is a basic human right. Choice is a consumer right. And sustainability is, we believe, environmentally right.